Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to another story. Today we're doing the bare fucking basics. And what I mean, some of you out there probably seen this title and just straight up laughed, or thought, alright, what the fuck is this guy doing talking about caffeine? Probably the most basic substance there is. But fuck it, we're here to talk about my first time trying caffeine. Well, specifically, this is more of a collective review of my experience with it to be more accurate. Because just trying caffeine is one thing, and it really isn't that special, but having it be a part of your lifestyle is a whole other thing. And the thing is, it is something some people may not take too seriously. A lot of people think just because you can get it at the store, that it's common for the working force to be on coffee or energy drinks, that it's normal pretty much, that it's just fine and dandy for you to consume without second thought. So along with this video, I'm going to bring up some things you may want to consider, specifically in the long term, and your health when it comes to consuming caffeine, especially if you're doing it frequently and in heavy amounts. And another big reason why we are doing this video is because I do consider caffeine a substance that is part of my journey within the playlist Chapter 1 Beginnings of a Psychonaut. It is something that's kind of always been around, so I'd say it fits into that. But let's waste no more time. Without further ado, let's start this. Okay, so for the actual first time I tried caffeine, it was through soda, just like anyone else. But I really only saw that as a sugar buzz, if anything. But my first actual interest was in coffee, from a really young age. The actual first taste I had was just through an offering by my mom when I was like 9, I think. And it wasn't even her idea. I think my cousin drank coffee, and she was like 12 or something, and I was somewhat influenced and interested in it because of her. My grandma was with us too, I think, and she convinced my mom to let me have a sip of coffee. I tried that shit and thought it tasted like dirty water, basically. My face scrunched up, so they knew that shit wasn't for me. At least not yet. So technically, that was my first time, but of course, I didn't get any caffeine buzz or any effects I can remember. Not for the first time I had an effective dose, other than soda, but we aren't counting that because I just drank that whenever and didn't really notice shit. It would be a few years later when I was 12 or 13. I guess it was around this time too. I was getting into more productive habits with my life, so that makes sense. But I remember every night before bed, my mom would set up the coffee pot for the morning, so you just had to hit it when you woke up. In other words, I was always around it. I would say around this time as well is when I started to develop a taste for things more bitter. Because today I kind of have a weird liking for bitter tasting things, especially if it's something natural, like the San Pedro cactus for example. But just one day, I decided, fuck it, let's hop on some coffee. Now at the time, I did it more so for the vibe rather than the actual effect. I of course was exposed to it by my parents, but also just about everyone in the workforce. I guess my teachers specifically. I just saw it as a thing people drink to get in the mood to get a bunch of shit done. So when I first tried it, I do remember getting somewhat of an effect with 1 cup of coffee. But again, it was just more about drinking it for the vibe rather than the effect, so I would start off by sipping it, because I didn't really like it at all at first, even with creamer and shit in it. But I just forced myself to like it. Kinda stupid, but that's just a me thing to do. I did the same shit with kratom, hated it at first, but you learn to like it. But with coffee at first, it gave me a little extra boost, but I would still go about doing things normally for the most part. Like work out, write a bit, play video games. I didn't really look for its effects, so I would just say it was kinda neutral. That is, until I really started to like drinking it. Now what really did it for me was finding out the benefits of drinking your coffee black, meaning you don't put any sugar, creamer, or crap in it. And I've always been somewhat health conscious, which I would say is partially responsible for making me want to drink black coffee. Because the thing is, I hated it at first. I remember taking a sip and feeling I was going to throw up. But I was determined. I guess you can say my psychotic tendencies have always been in me, because I'm not going to shy down in experiencing something simply off a foul taste. So yeah, my first cup of black coffee, I barely got a third of the way through it because I hated it. But the next day, it would be half the cup. Then the third day, I started to feel like it wasn't that bad. So I got through a cup. Slowly I really began to like the taste, so 1 cup turned into 2 cups, then into 3 cups, maybe a 4th on some days. And this is where I really started to feel the impact from the caffeine. Still will from drinking this much coffee. but I noticed I would generally begin to feel a bit overstimulated, mainly physically. I've never felt overstimulated by caffeine mentally. Some of the main effects I would experience is sweating somewhat profusely. I got really bad dry mouth. I noticed I would start peeing more, and with coffee, you end up shitting more too. Overall, I would just be more dehydrated, but this wouldn't be the worst part, because you can drink water and whatnot for that. The worst part would be the come down, or the caffeine crash. Yeah, when I got up to 3 cups of coffee, I would use that energy to get stuff done, but the aftermath left me somewhat in a groggy mood, tired. Caffeine will last for a few hours at most before you start coming down from it. And basically, what comes up must come down. So naturally, I began to feel drained by like noon or 1 p.m., feeling like I need a nap, which I wouldn't necessarily like doing. So I would just push myself through that phase, and I basically felt shitty. Looking back at it, it would have been better to not be on coffee at all. But that is how I first started with caffeine. Sometimes I would get a Red Bull or an energy drink if I was with people, but the coffee was something that was habitual. Now the biggest thing that made me get off coffee is simply the shits and the impact it can have on your digestive system. Like, when you're taking 2 or 3 shits in the morning alone, that should probably tell you this isn't the healthiest thing to do. I didn't really want to give up caffeine like that, because at this point, it did have a noticeable push for me. So I think I drank coffee for like half a year and then made the switch to tea. Green tea specifically. I would still drink coffee here and there, but green tea was the move, and that worked a hell of a lot better. No shits to be found caused by it, and the caffeine levels were more appropriate for what I was looking for. On top of the other benefits green tea can provide, it was the best move. Now ever since then, I probably drank tea daily for years, and only stopped like a couple years back now. I still love tea, but not necessarily with caffeine in it. I drink kratom tea, kava tea, psychedelic tea. I fuck with any tea heavy, as long as I can drink it hot. But that crash I mentioned earlier, I think with my increasing experience and awareness over the years, I began to notice the crash much more than before. Specifically, when I was using it for things like school, or just my passion projects, like this YouTube channel. It would only really be good when I was being physically active, but even then, only so much because of the dehydration. So I cut it off and found a much cleaner and more efficient workflow without it. But cannabis really is what replaced it. Instead, I would move to Bang Energy later, slowly but surely. I would drink a Bang maybe for a workout, or I would definitely for work, and still do to this day. Now a big reason I choose to drink Bang Energy is because there are no sugars in it, no calories, no carbs, has vitamins in it, and even some electrolytes. The caffeine content of one can is pretty high though, so I just sip it here and there throughout the day, because I still can't get that caffeine crash from it. I think I may rather drink tea compared to Bang, but the fact you can just grab it from the store and drink it right there makes me go to it more often. With my tea, I only like to drink it hot, and I'm not going to Starbucks or some shit where they'll tax the fuck out of you. And even then, when you do it like that, and you're out and about, your drink is only going to be hot for so long. So yeah, that's basically my history with caffeine and where I am with it today. I drink it every time I have work, so about 3 bangs in a week. And I feel like that's fair for me at this point, though it isn't my most favorite habit, I'd say. And if I wasn't working manual labor, I may not drink it very much at all. But let's bring up excessive caffeine use. I mean to the point where you built a tolerance and you're doing like 400, 500 milligrams plus a day, or something like that. Now for one, first check how you are getting your caffeine. You don't need a bunch of sugars and extra shit along with it. That would probably do you worse. But it is mainly a concern if you're an at-risk individual. What I mean by this is that caffeine has an impact on increasing your heart rate and blood pressure. So check your family history and see if your parents, grandparents, or really if anyone related to you has problems with this. Because you may be making yourself more prone to develop some kind of condition, especially in the long term. You don't want to have super high blood pressure or heart problems by the time you're 30. On top of this, taking in high amounts of caffeine can lead to hormonal imbalances, possibly having a negative influence on muscle growth. Caffeine itself can be an addiction, albeit somewhat minor compared to other substances, but it can still have an impact on your life regardless, possibly leaving you with withdrawal symptoms if you get to that point. It also could easily have a negative impact on your sleep, which can lead to an even more unhealthy lifestyle. At the end of the day, there is dopamine released when we drink things with caffeine. It does have a noticeable impact, and it should be considered seriously to some degree, as there are some risks with using it. So we're going to end it there for today. I think I shared a common experience with caffeine. I'm sure many of you can relate, and I'm sure some of you out there probably have gone way farther than I have. Which I say, just be aware of the risk of taking that much in and what could potentially happen if you are at risk. But other than that, if you want to see more stories like this, or any kind of video at all, let me know in the comments below and we can do that. If you have a trip report you want me to read of yours, send it to NoOneSubmitReport@gmail.com. If you can, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow the socials, share it. It's been someone that's knowing, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.